Mike here. I'm here with a very special friend, very special guest. This is Kevin, number 2 again, originally from Perrysburg, Ohio. What's the high school mascot of Perrysburg High School?
Called the Yellow Jackets, but my wife calls them the Bumblebees.
Okay.
So,
perfect, because
yes.
Ohio's agricultural, so Yellow Jackets works perfectly.
Yes.
And then you went to Ohio State.
Yes.
And now you sell Crimson Cup coffee.
I do.
We are huge fans of coffee on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about what makes Crimson Cup special.
You are totally setting me up right now so that you can say stop talking. So I'm just going to not say that at all.
Dang it. I was hoping you'd forgotten I was going to do that. All right, so Kevin is in Columbus. We have today mid-70s and windy and sunny skies, and so I'm in maybe the best mood I've ever been in. Everyone keeps saying, "Man, isn't this worth it?" And I'm like, "Heck no! This is not worth 5 months of torture to appreciate a day like today. I got to appreciate days like today all year round." In other parts of the country, doggone it. So Kevin was the guy who said to me before this winter, "Hey, I've had my snow shovel. It's brand new. I haven't used it in 2 years." And then all of a sudden we have the worst winter in how many years, you think?
5,
Yeah,
8.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Kevin. All right, so what we're going to do today is we are going to, there's stuff blowing up in the Twitterverse, ladies and gentlemen. And it's incredibly important that we do some virtue signaling and because our people are waiting to hear our take on these things. So it's very, very important that we speak to these things. So I want to try to get through 3 different things that have happened. A couple are very serious. One is just kind of funny. But I'm in a good mood today because of the weather. So I'll get more serious. But right now, man, the angels are singing. The birds are tweeting. Twitter people are tweeting too. It's outstanding today. So here's what we're going to do. GQ, of which Kevin and I are both members. GQ the magazine. I don't know if they have membership, but GQ the magazine wrote an article that came out a couple weeks ago, and it was 21 books that are considered classics that you really can skip. Like, they're just not that good. And to the horror and shock of all, they included the Bible on that list. And they wrote a little blurb about each of the books, that was considered a classic, but really could be skipped over. And I thought the blurb they wrote about the Bible was super interesting. So I was outraged instantly that GQ, a magazine noted for its literary expertise, would include the Bible on a list of books not to read.
That's amazing. And one that you take all of your fashion statements from as well?
Yep.
Sandals, shorts, and t-shirt?
Well, and a belt of leather and a cloak of, hair?
I didn't
Wolf's
read.
hair?
I didn't read the last
John the
magazine.
Baptist? Oh, okay. All right. Yes. Well, let me just say, we know a couple of things for sure. That all the people used greatly by God were bald and thick. And that's true. When you look at historical reconstructions, none of them wore skinny jeans. Not one, Kevin. All right. Now, so this is the blurb. This is the blurb that GQ wrote about the Bible. The Holy Bible is rated very highly by all the people who supposedly live by it, but who actually have not read it. Those who have read it know that there are some good parts, but overall, it is certainly not the finest thing that man has ever produced. It is repetitive, self-contradictory, sententious. Do you even know? I don't know what that means. Sententious. Grammar nerds, where are you? Sententious, foolish, and even at times ill-intentioned. Ooh, Kevin, what's your reaction to GQ?
Foolish and self-contradictory are interesting.
Yeah.
Ill-intentioned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that word sententious.
Sententious. Google it.
I'm Googling.
Crack research staff on it right now. But it was very interesting to Nevertheless, to have a publication like this, sententious, given to moralizing in a pompous or affected manner. See, I think he's describing Christians. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So it is, first of all, and of course, Twitterverse, half of Twitterverse blows up and is offended that you would put the Bible on this, and so let's just kind of get this one out of the way. It is a pretty darn weird book, and if you're looking at it as like a literary classic, yeah, I wouldn't put that on a list either. It's not a literary classic. It's something a lot different. It's also interesting that he notes, I think he or she notes, that a lot of people claim to live by it but don't really read it, and that's true. So I think it's absolutely the case that when we talk about the Bible, you really are talking about the most popular, least read book in history. And I don't mean read like, I have my devotional reading. I mean like studied and saturated in and, marinating in the text. And beyond just, hey, here's a cute devotional word that I really like that applies, to my self-esteem today. Hallelujah for that. But that's not what we're talking about. So I love the fact that even somebody like this knows, hey, Christians rarely read this thing. We like our preachers to read it for us and explain it to us. And there are shining exceptions, but the Bible really is this book that everyone thinks they know, but not really. And if you were just reading it from that perspective, not necessarily from a Christian perspective or theistic perspective, I have no problem understanding why you would think it's repetitive. Duh. Read Chronicles and Kings, baby.
Where is the repetition? Where?
There's a couple places.
Seems like it's driving the similar point home.
1,000 different ways, yes.
Yeah.
But if you were reading the Gospels for the first time, you're like, dude, I read this story last book, right? About Jesus. Like, okay, how many times do you have to read about him healing a leper? I got it.
When doesn't he die?
Right.
Right.
And so self-contradictory, that's an interesting one, because if without any background, absolutely it comes across that way. I mean, even the resurrection accounts of Jesus are crazy, trying to like harmonize them. And so granted there, sententious, I think that's more about people that claim to live by the Bible than the Bible itself, because the Bible's pretty honest about its the shortcomings of its authors, right? I mean, I go, man, there's not a lot of moralizing, because the people that are doing the moralizing are seen to be so flawed in the text itself. I just find that interesting. Foolish, you reacted to.
Well, I don't understand that one so much as to why it would be foolish. But
maybe because it's outdated. Like, we know now that gay people don't choose to be gay. So to have something that says that gay people, are living in sin, or that women can't be leaders, or so I read foolish as outdated.
That makes
or
sense.
Dumb, and even at times ill-intentioned. I don't get that one. But what's fascinating to me is first, absolutely, there are far more people that claim to read the Bible than actually read it. Even those who read it often are just kind of digesting little bits and pieces and nuggets of it through kind of a self-esteem therapeutic filter. But if somebody asked me if I thought the Bible were these things, I would actually say I would agree on repetitive, for sure.
Which that's not necessarily negative.
No. It's not like I need reminding or anything.
Right.
But I would say, well, if you're judging the Bible by its literary quality, okay. And if you're judging the Bible from a position of morality, that sees the Bible as regressive and backward, well, of course, I draw the same conclusions. It seems very boring. It seems generally overly complex. God does seem like, what's up with all these sacrifices? I mean, I got it. But that's not what the Bible's ever claimed to be. This was never a book of literature to be up there with, Catcher in the Rye. I mean, this was the Bible, as we've said before, is this library that stands as a witness to God's interacting with imperfect human beings and imperfect communities, trying to accomplish God's purposes through them. And so of course it's crazy because human beings are crazy. Of course it is. But I would argue the Bible's been used to produce ill, but the Bible itself is not ill-intentioned. The Bible's been used by the sententious, which is my new word for the day, but itself is not. Because, the irony is you're sententious in writing the Bible's sententious. That's the thing. So anyway, I don't know. Any other thoughts?
Well, so yeah, why does this matter? Why are we even talking about this?
Okay, because here's the reason.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that clarity. The reason that it matters to me is we should not be surprised when people who do not live a Jesus kind of life take issue with the book that we claim to be authoritative. So having a bunch of Christians on Twitter criticize GQ accomplishes nothing except proving, the sententious point. and I think it is illustratively, it is it is something that illustrates the fact that far too many of us relate to the world as if it were threatening to us. So there's this siege mentality. The Bible's under attack. Christmas is under attack. Our religious liberties are under attack. Our rights are under attack. And that is so not the position of Jesus of Nazareth. That is so not the testimony of the early church, right? They were really under attack. They were dying for their faith. And the consistent encouragement is live such good lives among the unbelieving, that they would see your good deeds and praise the Father in heaven. I mean, that was the encouragement. Dallas Willard, and this is all an excuse to get to this Dallas Willard quote, because this thing to me, he is to me what C.S. Lewis is to a lot of people. I mean, he just says things that, like, I've half thought, but he says them better, deeper, richer, and so I've given up.
The common man like myself, John Ortberg, is to me what Dallas Willard is to you. So if you guys are wondering the types of people sitting on this mic, you've got the brilliant Mike Erie, and then you've got the commoner, Kevin, number 2.
The Crimson Cup commoner.
No, don't associate.
And I love your crimson shirt.
I wore red today. Okay. Go Bucks.
Okay. Well, that... Always and every day. But it is the irony of you having a Tiger Woods kind of crimson shirt as a seller of crimson.
I'm wearing gray pants, not black pants.
Okay. Now, Dallas Willard quote. And I love this. And this to me totally wrecked me. He says, the gospel of Jesus does not require cultural privilege or even social recognition in order to flourish. See, we think it does. It requires our cultural privilege. It requires respect. It requires status. Even among those people that don't buy it, we insist on it. He says it does not require any of that in order to flourish. God's work is not disadvantaged by persecution, even to death, and much less so by mere pluralism. As Christians, we now stand in the kingdom of the heavens, and it is always true that they who are for us are more than they who are against us. It is always true that the one who is in us is greater than the one who is in the world. And he gives the example of Elijah, and it's an Old Testament story in the prophets of Baal, where whoever can call down fire from heaven is the God that's real. Right, you remember this story?
Yep,
you were there, and so Israel is divided in its allegiance, and Elijah's like, hey, if Baal's God, worship him. If Yahweh is God, worship him. But you gotta pick one, baby. So they had this thing where they built altars, and whoever could call fire down from heaven, so that the altar would go on, get lit on fire. That was the God who was real. So the prophets of Baal work themselves up in a frenzy, and they're whipping themselves, and they're chanting and dancing. I mean, it's forever. And Elijah starts taunting them. Hey, is he asleep? You have to wake him up. And that's actually a taunt that was given because Baal had a drinking problem, and so often he was known to slumber on his followers. So Elijah is taunting them. And then what Elijah does is he actually gives himself as many disadvantages as possible. So he dumps water, I think it's 3 times on the wood of the altar, so that there's no way it's naturally going to catch flame. And then he prays once, and he calls down God's fire, and God's fire not only lights up the altar, but takes out the priests of Baal, and Yahweh wins. But the idea, the metaphor that Dallas is using is that God doesn't need, God loves the disadvantages because it actually shows that it's from him and not from human beings. He does this all over the scriptures, right? Guy named Gideon. Hey, Gideon, you're going up against 90,000 Midianites. You've got 33,000 Israelites. That's way too many. So he makes Gideon whittle his force down to 300 people and says very basically, hey, it's so you know that it was I who did this. Or Paul will even say, listen, when you look at messengers of Christ, speakers and teachers and prophets and priests, don't ever think that they're special. They have treasure, but they themselves are a jar of clay. So and God does this so that people will know this message is from God and not from them. So God disadvantages himself always. So there's just so much effort in American Christianity right now to maintain our boundaries, to maintain our cultural privilege, to maintain our social recognition. And so here comes a group of people that aren't Christians saying, hey, the Bible's overrated. And first of all, we're totally hypocritical to critique somebody who says the Bible is overrated when most of us don't even spend time in it. But then secondly, we get all fired up about the culture war again. And what a waste. Okay. Right? So rather than defend the thing, it seems like the much better attempt is just to invite people to read it. And don't just start in Genesis. Start in Luke. Start in Mark. Start with the beauty and majesty of Jesus. Because to me, going from the Old Testament to Jesus is a far different thing than going from Jesus to the Old Testament.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting too. I think that I'm sure I don't want to make assumptions. We don't want to make assumptions, but the guy writing this article, if we back up and we take marketing 101, we take social media 101, clickbait. You make fun of the Bible or you trash Christians, and you're going to get a lot more traction digitally.
That's true.
Than any other thing. And so part of it is just like let's
try that. Christians suck. Let's see if that happens.
Are you talking about me again?
Well, are you a Christian?
I am.
How can you be a Christian and sell coffee? How can you waste your life like
this is on the internet, right? This is live. This is public.
Yeah.
I plead the fifth.
Okay, now the next thing we were outraged by, and this one is far more serious. Okay, so there's this guy. This is our outrage episode. So there's this.
I am outraged.
Yes, but this is legit outrage because there's this guy whose name is Paige Patterson, who's the head of, I don't know if he's the head of the whole denomination, like Southern Baptist or Southern Baptist Seminary, or I don't really know. I'm not familiar at all with that, with the hierarchies and stuff.
Did you say his name was Paige Patterson?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Hey.
I've got young boys at home, so I was just thinking about his initials.
Oh, that's funny. Yep. That's how
my
they
life.
roll. Oh yeah, blame them. Sure.
I'm also a kid.
Yeah, exactly. I think
commoner.
There's some point at which every male realizes they're still 12. And maybe that's in your 30s and 40s. I'm not sure. But anyway, so Paige Patterson wrote this, and again, I don't know how this came about. I don't know this person. I don't know the context. But here's a quote taken from somewhere. Now, again, it could be totally made up. The point is not whether or not this person said it. The point is this is a view that is said in parts of Christian subculture. Okay, so I can't give any context to this. But here's what the quote was, and it's been reported over several different news sources, and so, I thought, well, okay. I had a woman, he said, who was in church that I served, and she was being subject to some abuse. And I told her, all right, what I want you to do is every evening I want you to get down by your bed just as he goes to sleep. Get down by the bed, and when you think he's just about asleep, you just pray and ask God to intervene, not out loud, quietly. But I said, you just pray there. And I said, get ready because he may get a little more violent, when he discovers this. And sure enough, he did. She came to church one morning with both eyes black, and she was angry at me and at God and the world, for that matter. And she said, I hope you're happy. And I said, yes, ma'am, I am. And I said, I'm sorry about that, but I'm very happy. Okay? And he continues, and what she didn't know when we sat down in church that morning was that her husband had come in and was standing at the back, first time he had ever came. And when I gave the invitation that morning, he was the first one down in front, and his heart was broken, and he said, my wife's praying for me, and I can't believe what I did to her. And he said, do you think God can forgive somebody like me? And he's a great husband today. And it all came about because she sought God on a regular basis. And remember, when nobody else can help, God can. And in the meantime, you have to do what you can at home to be submissive in every way that you can and elevate him. Obviously, if he's doing that kind of thing, he's got some very deep spiritual problems in his life, and you have to pray that God brings into the intersection of his life those people and those events that need to come into his life to arrest him and bring him to his knees. All right, so needless to say, this did not go over well on Twitterverse. And in this instance, I think the outrage is very warranted. First, Kevin, reaction.
Whoa is a word that comes to my head. I'm sorry comes to my head. This is a tough one. Because this is going back to the earlier conversation. This is a story where I think he's pulling from Scripture some things that have been twisted a little bit, and he's using that as literal translation.
Yeah.
Putting it into play.
Well, there is a passage in 1 Corinthians 7 where Paul encourages a believing wife to stay with her unbelieving husband. Absolutely. But there is nothing in 1 Corinthians or in any place that says that if he is physically abusive, that advice and counsel holds in that moment. There's nothing that is even hinted at about this. So just I want to march through this real quick because, again, if he said it, he's an idiot. But I know people think this, so I'm using this as an example of a greater thing to talk about. So he said, I had a woman who was in the church that I served. She was being subject to abuse. And I told her, all right, what I want you to do is every evening, I want you to get down by your bed just as he goes to sleep. Get down by your bed. When you think he's asleep, just pray, ask God to intervene, not too loud, but quietly. Okay, that, first of all, praying, of course, pray. But the first thing this person should have said to this lady, what I want you to do is get out of the house. Call the police, get out of the house, separate yourself so that he cannot do any further harm, and then pray like crazy. But do not stay in the abusive relationship if you are physically in danger. I mean, can you imagine Jesus of Nazareth saying something like this? I mean, no, this is ridiculous. And then when he says, get ready because he may get a little more violent. Are you kidding me? The idea that you have to put up with his violence in order to save him is absolutely ridiculous. And then he says, in the meantime, be submissive in every way and elevate him. Oh, okay, that sounds totally biblical. Not. And we talked about why. But elevate him. Let's keep him. You're on eggshells, so let's just make sure you keep propping him up. Don't ever address the real issue. Just make sure he's feeling good about himself and powerful. Be submissive in every way. Obviously, if he's doing that kind of thing, he's got some very deep spiritual problems. Hell yes. And you have to pray that God brings into the intersection of his life those people and those events that need to come into his life to arrest him and bring him to his knees. All right, he's already done it. The minute you hit your wife, God has not even remotely arranged, but God has now given whatever ammo is needed to arrest somebody and bring them to their knees. That's the event. You don't wait for some other freaking event. That's the event. And you're sitting there and taking it does not help your husband, nor is it a godly thing to do to put up with physical violence towards you for the sake of your husband's salvation. Right? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
And then to have a woman who comes in with black eyes and to look at her and say, "Hey, I'm happy because your husband came to Jesus." Oh my Lord. What? I mean, this is so anti-Christian.
Oh, absolutely.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
And I mean, I just can't even, and so I'm just like, listen, I do think the Bible permits divorce. We have a whole episode on divorce. And I think physical abuse constitutes, you can say it's a desertion, you can say it's abandonment, you can say it's a breaking of vows. I don't care. Now, I have seen Jesus do some incredible work. With people who've been cheated on, with emotional abuse. I mean, absolutely, no question it can be redeemed. The issue is it redeemed best through the woman's silent submission to this abuse, or is this the event where the authorities get called, where the woman says enough, and think about how many women don't come forward. Whoa, because that's the advice they'll get.
It's terrible. No, I mean, it's one of those. It's like the advice should have been drive over to the guy's house, take care of him.
Go to Craigslist and hire a thug.
But to even visually, as you read through this story, it's like it puts imagery in my head, and it just breaks my heart that as a man that he would be so thankful this guy is in church seeing his wife like that. I just.
Right. And then there's one other point I want to make, and then we'll be outraged by something else.
Perfect.
But the idea that all he has to do is show up to church once and come forward in tears, and that somehow that's repentance. That's not true. That's not true. Maybe I know those stories happen, but I also know that abusers are terribly manipulative. And that could be a totally false repentance that woos the woman back into the home, and then a month, 6 months, a year later, the abuse happens again. And then everyone was like, "Oh, look at how repentant this guy is." No. There is fruit to repentance, baby, and that fruit is only demonstrated by time. So, if you are listening to the sound of our voices and you are in this kind of relationship, please do not seek the counsel of anybody else. Get the heck out of there first and then talk to people. Really, just separate yourself. If you are in physical danger, go to the police. There are domestic violence advocates that are attached in most police stations. Find one of them. I know it's horrifying. You do not deserve this. This is not your fault. But please do not give credence to people in religious authority who would encourage you to stay in a situation like that physically. Now, could it be that separation could redeem the marriage? Of course. I mean, God can do whatever. But he will not, only if you're being persecuted for the sake of Jesus, right? People are asking you to deny the lordship of Christ. Okay, well then we put our lives down, right? I mean, that's okay. Otherwise, this is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So boo on you for thinking.
So was this guy it's a former quote, something that happened in the past. Is this in the article? Is he advocating that this is true now, moving forward?
He came out with an explanation that further muddied that
defended what he wrote.
Yeah, well, but it didn't do a great job, and it further muddied the waters. And I don't remember exactly what he said in his defense. But if you're interested, go to the Religious News Service, RNS, on Twitter. They have a whole bunch of stuff on this. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. But again, I mean, it's just one of those things where we have so many better things to talk about. But when this stuff gets traction and is put into the public sphere by religious figures or from religious figures, it feels like we got to say something,
Absolutely.
right? Because there are a number of people who listen not only to, those sorts of things, but to even our little show who think that somehow that's what Christians think. And that goes exactly, as you said, into the first critique. If that's in the Bible, that is foolish. That is ridiculous. I mean, that's harmful.
Right.
And I wonder how many women, if you looked at it, how many millions of women have received that same counsel or were sure they were going to and stayed in very physically harmful situations. I just think Jesus weeps over that stuff.
Absolutely.
And so no man, it never says, never says, in order to win your unbelieving spouse that you have to stay there and be physically harmed. That is absolutely ridiculous. All right. Last thing, and we're already at half an hour, Kevin, because you talked so much. Beth Moore. So I don't know her. I know she is part of a large ministry. I know she lives in Texas. I've heard of her for years. But it wasn't until recently, maybe in the last year or so, that I followed her on Twitter and have been deeply blessed. Like I know it sounds, Twitter does not have power, but the stuff that's going on in her soul as she's working it out publicly is incredible. And I've learned, I've been blessed, I've been encouraged, I've been convicted by stuff she's written. So I've just become a huge fan.
Well, what took you so long? Why just last year?
Exactly. Well, I didn't know who she was. We never intersected.
Well, I think Beth, she spoke at like one of the very first Passion gatherings with Louis Giglio back in the day. So younger folks, the younger generation
that's
have followed her for a long time. So I was just curious.
I'm a very smallish fish in a very smallish pond. All right. So the conferences I go to and I'm invited to speak at, people like Beth Moore not there. So I just never heard. I just never forgive my ignorance and delay.
Well, you need to get a little bit more books sales to get at the bigger conferences and do the
right. Deal. Exactly.
And,
Dang it.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry that people just don't read your stuff.
I know. I would say I've written 2 good books out of the 5.
Yeah. I'd say 3.
Okay.
3.
I
don't remember the other 2 titles, but
I went back and actually read the beginning of one of them, and I was like, oh my Lord, this is awful. This is awful. I thought it was great at the time. This is horrible.
Isn't it amazing, though, how the older we get, we go back and read things we wrote?
It's like, whoa, I just got an email from Amazon Restaurants. Here's $7 for dinner. So awesome. Jeff.
Get us back on track. Thank you, Amazon. Beth Moore.
Yes. All right. So anyway, so I'm just a huge respecter, but I'm coming late to the party. And she wrote a letter yesterday on her website. It was called A Letter to My Brothers. And I found it just tragic and heartbreaking and suffocating and convicting and everything. And so I could not go, in terms of other things that were outraged. This was when I was outraged at me and the culture that we've all created. So here, I'm just going to read some excerpts from it because I think they speak for themselves. They don't need me to validate them or us to comment on it. I just think, wow, this theology matters. And theology can be such a great hiding place. So we can be very sinful and we can hide behind our theology. And we just had another example of that, right before this one, but here's a different one. She says, as a woman leader in the conservative evangelical world, I learned early to show constant pronounced deference, not just proper respect, which I was glad to show, but constant pronounced deference to male leaders, and when placed in situations to serve alongside of them, to do so apologetically. I issued disclaimers ad nauseum. I wore flats instead of heels when I knew I'd be serving alongside a man of shorter stature so that I wouldn't be taller than he. How That's crazy. I've ridden elevators in hotels packed with fellow leaders who were serving at the same event and not been spoken to, and even more awkwardly, in the same vehicles where I was never acknowledged. I've been in team meetings where I was either ignored or made fun of, the latter of which I was expected to understand was all in good fun. I am a laugher. I can take jokes and make jokes. I know good fun when I'm having it. I also know when I'm being dismissed and ridiculed. I was the elephant in the room with a skirt on. I've been talked down by male seminary students and held my tongue when I wanted to say, brother, I was getting up before dawn to pray and pore over the scriptures when you were still in your pull-ups. Boom. Some will inevitably argue that the disrespect shown to me was not over gender, but my lack of formal education. But that too largely goes back to issues of gender. Where was a woman in my generation and denomination to get seminary training to actually teach the scriptures? Right? They didn't. They weren't open. I've accepted these kinds of challenges for all these years because they were simply part of it, and because opposition and difficulties are norms for servants of Christ. I've accepted them because I love Jesus with my whole heart and will serve him to the death. I accepted the peculiarities accompanying female leadership in a conservative Christian world because I chose to believe that whether or not some of the actions and attitudes seemed godly to me, they were rooted in deep convictions based on passages in 1 Timothy 2 and 1 Corinthians 14. Then early 2016 surfaced attitudes among some key Christian leaders that smacked of misogyny, objectification, and astonishing disesteem of women, and it spread like wildfire. It was just the beginning. I came to face with one of the most demoralizing realizations of my adult life. Scripture was not the reason for the colossal disregard and disrespect of women among many of these men. It was only the excuse. Sin was the reason, ungodliness. Oh, dang. So is it possible to believe that women should not hold positions of leadership and treat women well? Of course. Absolutely. You can, and there was even an apology written by a guy from the Gospel Coalition who was very specific in his apology. I mean, it was beautiful how specific this person was. It was really, he's a man and he owned it. It was really powerful. So yes, I never want to say, hey, this is the result of certain kinds of theology. I'm just saying certain kinds of theology very easily lead to disregarding of other people. If you really don't believe that human beings are made in the image of God, like deep down, really easy to demonize your enemy. If you don't believe that women are made in the imago Dei and are equal, of incredible, absolute, unsurpassing worth as co-image bearers of God, doesn't matter what your theology is. If you treat them like crap, you've just shown us what you really think, right? Theology, this is where theology matters. And certainly people that hold an egalitarian perspective don't always treat women well. We're seeing that in the case of Willow Creek, and that's a whole other thing that we can be talking about. So there are exceptions in every direction, of course, but the idea that you can hide behind it's like the LGBTQ issues, right? I don't have to love them because Scripture says that's sinful. and you just are like, oh my Lord. If that was the test, man, then you can't love anybody.
They miss the repetitive nature of the Bible. This says love people, love God, love people, love God, love people,
love God. If you really love God, you'll love people.
That's why it's not a top 25 classical literature, because of the repetitiveness.
Right.
Of those two things.
It's almost like we need that.
No. I mean, we don't do that? What?
So, I know. Kudos to Beth Moore for putting up with that nonsense. And kudos for writing what it was really like. And, the first thing it always causes in me is, okay, it's great I can critique other people for their dumbness, but I always have to look at the log in my own eye. And so I just had a good long think yesterday about, okay, how have I contributed to that kind of culture? And, it's one of those things where, there's the faux outrage of like the GQ article that just hurts us. There's legitimate outrage against injustice. But then there's the kind of outrage that has to be directed towards self. It's like, oh my goodness, how how have I been a problem to this? How have I been in collusion to this? And so life in the Twitterverse is always interesting. And outrage can never just be our, one main sort of fuel. But I thought these were just three things as I was going through the week that went, oh my goodness, these were very powerful things to read, to hear, to see, and to feel like they were worth commenting on. So Kevin, final thoughts, my friend.
Final thoughts.
What's your best roast?
Best roast
in Crimson Cup?
You don't care.
Okay.
But it's interesting. I'm sitting in Mike's library here, and he has a book called Pour Your Heart Into It, How Starbucks Built a Company One Cup at a Time, which is about coffee.
Yeah, it's about leadership, but yes.
It's
my friend David gave that
coffee.
Yeah.
And I just wanted the world to know
it's about leadership.
That you secretly have a little obsession for this great gift of God called coffee. But I do think when I read this from Beth Moore, I think it sparked a lot of things in my own heart. I used to lead conferences and events, and was kind of in the world that she's in from the production side, not necessarily the writing or speaking side. But it was just amazing to be like, I think I've always wondered, how does she feel when she goes to these events where some of the bigger names who fall into this letter are there? And I think it just broke my heart as I was reading this, and I just felt sad. I felt sad to be a man, if that makes sense.
Of course.
You're just like these. I love these guys, are brothers as well, but man, you just screwed up a few times. And what's amazing is the different events that I led. I mean, I've been so blessed and touched by many of the women theologians, speakers. It's just, I just never have had thoughts like this, and so many of them I've just done so much for my own walk, and I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but
that's good.
It's just I actually led a conference with a group that they said, absolutely no woman will be allowed to teach on stage. And I remember just looking at the guy saying, are you kidding me? Like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And, he went on and on to the reasons why. And, we didn't end up partnering. I mean, it didn't happen because I'm like, that's just not what we do. So yeah, thanks, Beth, for putting this out there. At the same time, so sorry. So I don't know if those were final thoughts.
Those are great thoughts. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just too bad.
Yeah. So with that, brothers and sisters, again, sometimes we want to talk theology. Sometimes we want to just react to things that are going out in the world because, and the irony of that GQ article, the reason the Bible is thought to be what that person said is because of the two examples that followed, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, we're Christians. It's your Christian duty to stay in a physically abusive household. It's your Christian duty to shut up women when you're at the table and, to learn in quietness and submission. And, and always we want to be skeptical. We don't want to just go with the cultural flow. Of course, we want to test everything, hold on to the good. But there are times when culture really does lead the church community. And I think this is one of those times. And so, to that end, we bless the fact that the light of truth is shining. And for those of us who are, big time sinners, it's good to see that the future of Christianity, at least in its American forms, will look much different than what the past has looked like. And
absolutely.
So that's a good thing.
How would you what is the future, the good, and maybe like 2 sentences or brief summary of saying moving forward from Beth's letter? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, what is that?
Oh yeah.
How do you feel Christian culture is moving towards in a positive way, where hopefully the next Beth Moore, the next 25-year-old woman, might not have this same experience? Like, where are we?
Well, it's
headed?
already. You see that already.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I have no doubt that this stuff still goes on among and to women under 30. but there's this whole new raising of voices, particularly on social media. I mean, that social media is now allow for the amplification of voices we've just never, they've never been given platforms in any other way. The amount of scholarship coming from theologians who are female is just ridiculously awesome. I mean, I have books and books and books written by female scholars, and I just laugh because even when I thought, okay, women shouldn't be like you're the primary teacher, I was still reading those books and allowing them to form and shape. Maybe it's just the hypocrisy of the position. So it's already happening first. Secondly, we are now at a place where things are being spoken of culturally that have always been hidden. And what that does, it does a very negative thing in the sense that the people who are already suspicious of church religion are just given far more ammunition to be suspicious of it. But on the other side, what it's doing is it's showing that Jesus, like when you get a glimpse of Jesus in the New Testament after the Gospels, you get one in Acts, and then you get one in Revelation where Jesus is speaking to churches, and he's actually kicking some butt. It's like he wasn't totally happy with everything going on in his church. And I think we've just kind of drifted from holy reverence. We've drifted from a concern for holiness. It's like we're so grace saturated. It's like it really doesn't matter what I do and how I live. That now this underbelly is being exposed, and there'll be a great and beautiful overcorrection, but that will need further correcting down the line against some of the cultural forms of Christianity we've been handed, particularly it's singular masculine expressions. Masculine expressions. You're now seeing men in positions of authority and influence openly advocating and sharing platforms, which is beautiful. Conferences like you used to do, not distinguishing between male and female. It's just, hey, is God at work? Are you gifted? That kind of thing. I think there's a lot of good like Bible study out there about the passages that are often used by complementarians. So is that? I mean, that's more in two sentences. Does that help?
No, I just wanted to end well. I end like, okay, like how, where are we moving as a culture? And it's amazing that she could write this now and speak it now, and that's fantastic.
Well, I just got an email from Bonnie referencing that article and her experience. We've had Bonnie on our show several times, and man, she's lived this like crazy. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah. Anyway, I'm reading her email. But she's somebody to listen to about this as well. So maybe we can have her on. And again, it's not. Here's the big thing. I think this is super important. It's not about being. I don't want to apologize because I'm male. I don't want to apologize because I'm white. I don't want to apologize because I'm heterosexual. I want to apologize because I've done things that, looking back, have contributed to the pollution. You know what I'm saying? This isn't about just feeling bad that you're a guy. It's about recognizing the way you've added to the pollution and now being an advocate for an entirely new church culture, right? And so for me, this isn't like the goal here isn't to be, my goal isn't to be woke. My goal is to be Jesus-y. And so when you come into contact with things in culture where clearly Jesus elevated women, and culture at the same time is pulling down, so many of the curtains that darkness is hid behind, we can get on board with that as Jesus people. Make sense?
Yes.
And I don't mean to get into race or sexuality or anything. I'm just saying it's not just enough. So because some people, I will hear this from people, they'll say, well, listen, okay, well, I'm sorry I'm white then. I'm sorry I'm male then. I'm sorry I'm straight. I mean, well, what do you want me to do? I didn't do anything. And to recognize that in the Bible there is such a thing as institutional evil that gets codified into culture in ways that the privileged classes never even see. That's a true thing. I mean, we live in a neighborhood. Okay, I found this out after we moved here. We live in a neighborhood that until the 1950s had that there were laws on the books that prevented houses here from being sold to people of color and to Jewish people. Okay, there was no, it's true, I've seen them. It is, I mean, like that sort of institutional thing does have to be apologized for and repented for. And I was the beneficiary of it in ways I never knew. And then we wonder why Upper Arlington is so freaking white. I don't know. It was designed to be that way. You know what I'm saying? So to me, this isn't about just the slapping on there. Hey man, I'm just sorry. I'm a guy. I'm just sorry. I'm white. I'm just sorry. I'm straight. No. It's got to go deeper than that. But the end result of it isn't just this. Well, I wish I were a person of color, or I wish I were somebody that experienced persecution. No. The issue isn't that. The issue instead is I want to be like Jesus. And Jesus treated all of these people so beautifully. Jesus treated people with the imago Dei. Is this making sense? I'm worried I'm stepping on, like, I'm fuzzy here.
No, it makes sense.
Am I fuzzy?
No, it makes total sense. You're opening up like 12 more podcast issues.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to say that generic apology isn't what we're after.
Right. No,
it's got to be the looking back to say that.
Well, the generic apology doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
Because it's like, you can't change the fact that you're white. You can't change the fact that all those different things you said. I mean, it is, it is what it is. And so I think going deeper, it's like getting past that is the point here.
So it's easy for me to read Beth Moore's letter and go, man, those freaking idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
What a bunch of jerks. But the deeper move then is for me to go, okay, Lord, show me my jerkness, show me mine. And maybe it was more subtle, maybe whatever. It's irrelevant. I mean, that's the log and the speck thing all over again. And so when because I'm pushing back against the objection that I hear in my head from people that are just like, listen, man, I didn't do any of this stuff. Why is everyone bagging on white straight men? It's not all our fault. And there's a sense in which that's true and that's false.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's true in the sense that, I personally have not owned any slaves.
Right.
Right? But the culture I've benefited from did, and the world that I've lived in has, and the cultural inheritance has certainly favored white people in ways that, like moving here, I had no idea. Right. That was horrifying. Like that was a real thing, and not so long ago.
Right.
And you realize, oh my goodness, this stuff is still here, and we have to do something. We have to do something about it. So the future. So there is this justice thing, and of course there'll be missteps along the way. But there's this beautiful telling the truth moment now, that of course Jesus loves. Oh my goodness, Jesus loves it. He is the God of truth. Right? He shines light. I mean, and he even says this. He says things like, what's been whispered in rooftop, or what's been whispered in corners will be shouted from rooftops. Right? You will have to give an account for every careless word you've uttered. And you're like, okay, I've uttered a lot of careless words. So this is I think there's some deep holiness in these moments. And so anyway, just kudos to people like Beth and people like Bonnie who have, literally just been at this for years in the face of crazy stuff, just to do what they thought God was telling them to do, So anyway,
and they kept doing it. They kept moving forward. That's what's amazing. They didn't
stop.
They didn't give up, and that's incredible too. So, but yeah, I think what you're mentioning about is the things you can't change about yourself necessarily, but that's not authentic.
Right.
And so I think the call and the need and the desire is to be authentic, just like Beth is. She's reaching deep within her soul to share some really hard stuff, and it's doing a lot of good. And so I think the guy from Gospel Coalition was really specific. He wasn't. His apology was incredible because he wasn't just saying, "Hey, I'm sorry," that we've treated you this way. He actually named specific instances
where he was silent and where other people had spoken negatively of her.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, dude, that's what I'm talking about.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, all that is to say, there's much more to talk about.
Absolutely.
So anyway, love you, Kevin number 2. Thanks for joining in. What kind of coffee were you drinking when you walked in?
It's because it's warm today. An iced latte. No sugar, no flavor. Just a nice little cold coffee drink this morning.
What's it do? So no
what does
flavor.
it do? It makes me as handsome as I am, and keeps me awake during your monologues.
Okay, that's fair. The handsome comment is the reason why you don't have any sales yet.
Whoa. So if you're out there, that was a passive-aggressive way to say, call me, buy some coffee.
Yes. CrimsonCup.com, ladies and gentlemen. A newer advertiser.
Oh,
right?
They're gonna be so thrilled.
You should. We'll charge you.
They're gonna make me pay them money just to do this.
All right, brothers and sisters. Well, thank you, Kevin, for your time.
Hey, thanks for letting me be here. Yep. Love it.
And may the Lord bless you all and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance to you and may he give you peace in these days. My brothers and sisters, go build the kingdom. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Vox Podcast. Learn more about us at voxpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at the Vox Podcast, and now support us on Patreon at patreon.com/voxpodcast.